Okay, Zul Reborn. Zul is going to be a step up from the other encounters, but at the same time, there is lots of room to min-max this fight. So phase 1, Zul is stationary in the center of the room, and he's just gaining energy. He cast a few things at the raid, and he takes damage. But besides that, um, he doesn't really do much of anything. There are 3 types of ads on this fight. Well, 4 technically, but 3 that we actually need to target. Uh, there is the Nazmani Crusher, which is the big hulking ad that they're tanking right there. When this ad reaches full energy, it is, you see that circle over that was on the side of the room there? When he reaches full energy, he casts an ability called Thrumming Pulse, which increases the damage of all enemies who get hit by that AoE. Doesn't deal any damage to us, but it will buff all the ads. So we want to avoid all of them being hit by that, like they did there. Whoever's tanking that ad, when he's getting to about 80% energy, you want to pull it out to the edge of the room where there aren't any other ads and let him get that cast off, and then pull him back in. So the second type of ad is the Nazmani Blood Hexer. These are going to spawn in a pair on opposite sides of the platform. If they are ever within 20... Yeah, if they're ever within 20 yards of each other, they heal all enemies for 10% every 2 seconds. Basically, it's game over. They heal Zul and also. So basically, if these get within 20 yards of each other, we're not going to be able to recover because they're going to heal everything on the platform every 2 seconds. So what we're going to want to do is they can be hard CC'd. So we're going to have a hunter trap one of them, and then the other one can be gripped. So we're going to grip the other one and just go ham on it. They cast Animated Ichor, which spawns a blood, that the blood walks towards Zul, and if it reaches him, it heals him. But they do not cast this for the first 20 seconds they were up, and these guys are using this strat pretty much, and you can kill off the first ad before it ever spawns blood. So pretty much that first Blood Hexer is target number 1. You want to drop anything else you're DPSing, and everybody swaps to it hard. We'll grip it closer to the boss. Just go ham on it, kill it off. The other one, because it has been alive for 20 seconds, as soon as we break the CC, it's going to spawn in a blood, but we're going to keep it far away. We'll kill the blood. They can be slowed, they can be gripped, knocked back, all that sort of thing to try and keep them away from the boss. But basically, we want to kill the other ad before it can get off the second blood. And that's how we'll deal with those 2 ads. The last type of ad is these blood crogs that run in, and they just fixate on random players. So essentially, if you're fixated by one of these, you want to stack up with whatever the priority target is, so they can get cleaved down. If it's the Blood Hexer, you want to stack with the Blood Hexer so that the ads get cleaved down. If it is the Crusher, you want to stack with the Crusher. However, you want to make sure that if the tank is pulling the Blood Hexer out because it's about to cast its buff, don't follow the tank, because if you give, I think it's like a 40% DPS increase if they get hit by that buff, they will run through a player pretty quickly if they get buffed. So don't follow the tanks with the Crusher out to the edge of the platform. Can you go ahead and rewind it, Melon? And I'll go over the other mechanics that we have to do.
Just back to the beginning?
Before we go over phase 2, which is what they're at now. So the other mechanics that we'll have to deal with are basically straight out of King's Rest. So there's so the first one is there's that ad right before you fight the last boss, I think it is, that puts Mark of Zul on a player. and then it spawns that little ad that has to be dispelled. That exact same mechanic is on this fight. Um, Somebody is going to get that debuff. They need to run out. It does damage to the entire raid when it ends, based on their proximity, sort of like Soul Burst from Argus. So that player that gets that should be casting it here pretty soon. There's two players get it, and they're going to run out. Ideally, you're not running to the same direction because you're going to damage each other with yours going off. When these expire, they deal damage to the whole raid, and they're going to spawn 5 of those little minions of Zul ads that they can be DPS down, but whenever they're dispelled and that buff they have is removed, they are removed. So Arcane Torrent will dispel these and kill them all off. Mass Dispel will kill all these and clear them all off. So Blood Elves and Priest are going to be largely in charge of keeping an eye on the players that have these cast on them and making sure that those all get dispelled. If they reach a player, they do an AoE fear. So not just the player that they're fixated on, but anybody within, I want to say it's 8 yards of the player, if they reach them, gets feared. And so things can go south really quickly if they run into melee and do a fear and everybody gets feared and is running off. So dispelling these is going to be a big key to this encounter. The last thing is, I think also on that same trash mob, is the little swirl on the ground that you have to stand in. Otherwise it pulses damage to the entire raid. So people just need to, if they're near this, go stand in it for the duration until it drops off. So that's pretty much phase one. Phase one lasts until Zul reaches 40%. During testing, I've looked at a lot of logs. There were guilds that got 9 minutes into this fight and never pushed Zul into the last phase because, like this group is doing here, they've got everything on top of Zul as much as they can, and they're cleaving onto him and AoEing. And then they're killing off the hexers before they can cast the bloods, so they don't have to worry about the heal. They're pulling the crusher out, so they don't have to worry about the buff going off. But at the same time, they're getting as much damage as they can on Zul, and they push here into phase 2 4 minutes in. But there were guilds who were like keeping everything spread out and just DPSing Zul when ads were down, and they were going 9 minutes into the fight. And never pushing into that phase. So min-maxing and keeping on top of like priority targets while still cleaving and getting as much AoE as we can into Zul is the key to kind of getting through this fight as quickly as possible. Once he reaches 40%, he goes active, no matter what ads are up. If we've got a crusher up, we want to make sure and finish it off like they've got there. They've got that one of the hexers CC'd. We can just CC one of those. We can CC both of them technically, actually, for all of this phase if necessary. So the big change for this phase, the tanks are going to get a debuff. You can see the tank running off to the bottom corner there. Tank gets a debuff, and when that debuff ends, it drops a big puddle on the ground that deals ticking damage, sort of like Cenarius. He dropped that puddle whenever the tank's debuff ended on that fight. Or no, he hit the tank, and however much the tank damage the tank took, he did a spawned a puddle. Instead of the players getting to run out when they get the debuff, Dark Revelation, that's the one that spawns the minion of Zul. Instead of getting to run out, the player is mind controlled and just walks towards the closest edge. Kind of like they had there, we want to make sure that the raid is as close to the center of the room, all on the same side of the middle though, as possible, so we don't have some people going to the back left and some to the right, and some through the tank. So you can see there the two people get mind controlled and they have to be dispelled. It still spawns the same 5 ads. You can also see there one of the ads hit one of the players and they had a fear go off. And then, yeah, so basically it's a DPS race. The dispelling the people who get mind controlled deals damage to the whole raid, so we want to stagger those slightly, but at the same time that player will just walk off the edge if it is not dispelled in time. So we want to make sure to stagger those by a couple of seconds. And then, yeah, if we've got an ad up, we need to keep it CC'd. That's basically all there is to the last phase. The tanks are going to get the debuff. The debuff deals ticking damage to the tank, but is extendable as far as I know. And so the it's a 20-second debuff, and you can take a couple of stacks before the damage got too high, and then you want to just make sure and run that out. And then that's the other thing. Wherever we're running that out, if you get mind controlled and you're in the direction that puddle is, that puddle deals damage as you walk through it, and will probably kill you even through the mind control and stuff. So don't be in a direction that one of those big puddles has been dropped. I expect that fight to take us a few pulls, but if everybody is really on top of what the priority targets are, then that fight shouldn't be a huge headache. But if we're kind of scattered all over the place and we're not killing things quickly, like if we're not all switching to the hexer and getting them down before they get blood ads off, that fight will be a bit of a headache.